Well, I think the beauty of comedy is saying the things that you're not supposed to say, right? It's revealing the truth that nobody wants to reveal, or articulating things in a way that people have felt deep inside, you right? Like that's like that guttural laughter that is undeniable that comes. uh it's not coming because you thought about, is it appropriate to laugh at this or not? It's coming because you know deep down in your soul that you feel something, and somebody just put it into words and transferred their emotions and their feeling and their language to you, and you're like, okay, this is funny. Now I'm sort of, my borders, my boundaries are dissolving a little bit. It's easier to kind of feel okay in an environment that can seem really scary and really frightening, but because we're all laughing together, maybe it's not, and maybe we're all feeling that same thing, you know. But yeah, that you have to have the freedom to be able to express yourself in whichever way that you do, and that leads to ingenuity and innovation and cross pollination and collaboration and cooperation. Because when we hold back what we think and what we feel, we create, this sort of like pressure and these confines and constrictions within us, which lead to dis-ease in our bodies and our minds. And then we're second guessing everything that we're thinking and we're feeling, and then we're not aligned and we're not showing up in truth. We don't know who the hell we are, and everything's a mess. And if you can't be free to speak anything, and I mean anything, and especially with comedy, because you have to take risks. On my last podcast, I talked about how Robert Plant was secretly having sex with an octopus at the bottom of the sea. Stupid, silly, right? But I could see someone getting offended by that. And I even put that into the joke. And it's like I don't mean that. I'm just being silly. I'm exploring. Is it funny? Are people going to laugh at this? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it's a dud. Maybe it's a bomb. Maybe it's not funny. But I need to be able to have the expression to go to those uncharted territories and those uncharted waters, those lands of the unknown, the depths of the soul and of my beingness, to see what's there so that I could paint on the color palette of this big canvas of our world and add some kind of color to it. And so I think that having that ability to do that is a vital importance, and not just in the world of comedy, but in the world of ideas, in the world of how should we behave and how should we act and how should we govern and how should we organize and how should we contribute to creating a better world. We got to test it out. We got people oftentimes think that libertarianism is this sort of like uh, weird tyrannical ideology, right? Like I've even heard Tom Woods say, like, "Oh yeah, libertarians are conspiring to make a free world so everybody can be independent and have liberty. That's the big conspiracy." It's like, well, under our system, you're free to experiment however you want, you know, free to experiment in anything. And the freedom to experiment is diversity and novelty and newness, experimentation, which leads to things that we can't even imagine. So in some places they can experiment with socialism. In some places they can experiment with communism. In some places they can experiment with all kinds of radical ways of doing stuff. But I think that we need the freedom to experiment. We need the freedom to speak. And if that's restricted, then we're restricted. We're constricted. We're living small. We're boxed in. We're closed in our rooms, under our covers, hiding away, locked away, covering our faces, afraid to come out. And it's interesting sort of microcosm for the human experience of sheltering yourself away and locking yourself away. It's giving it all the power to the machine that's already in operation to just execute on its agendas. But what about you? What about your life? What about how you feel? What about what you think? What about your dreams and what you want to do? And how real does that feel inside of you? Or is there a conflict? Is there something that's not working? So I hope that people can wake up and we can shake off this idea of fear and step out into the fold and take risks and say things that are controversial and see, and let's join together and see what works. What's the best way of doing stuff?